We are meant to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird.
Tales of mystery and terror by radio's masters of the macabre.
Stories of the supernatural, the supernormal, dramatized in fantasy, the mystery, the unknown. We tell you this frankly, so if you wish to avoid the excitement and tension of these imaginary plays, we urge you calmly and sincerely to turn off your radio now.
Welcome back to The Horror. Thanks for joining me this Saturday. We're going to hear from Beyond Midnight this week. A series that debuted November 1st, 1968, aired until April 24th, 1970, for South Africa's Springbok radio station. The story we're going to hear today is from January 31st, 1969. It's titled A Night in the Waxworks.
9:30.
The last stragglers were leaving Mariner's Waxworks. The uniformed attendants, glad that another day's work was over, were locking up. On the second floor of the old grey building, the manager, a stout, blond man of smart appearance, was talking to one Raymond Hewson, who looked anything but smart. His clothes, although good once, were showing distinct signs of their owner's losing battle with the world.
There's nothing new in your request. In fact, we refuse it to many people. Young bloods have often made bets, but we don't play ball. We've nothing to gain and something to lose by letting people spend a night in our murderer's den.
A night in the murderer's den. That's what Raymond Hewson, the man in the shabby clothes, was after. Why? You'll find out. The Waxworks. I must earnestly beseech you not to listen to this Beyond Midnight alone.
Biotex, the new soak and pre-wash powder, presents Beyond Midnight by Michael McCabe.
I had a letter recently from Mrs. V.P., head of 7th Street, Parkmore, Johannesburg, and she said, I cannot fully describe my utter delight on returning to the washing to find the stubborn stains of 2 months' standing completely removed. I am so glad I discovered your product, Biotex. And now Mrs. J. Longman of Cambridge, West East London, wrote to say, just a word of thanks for your new soak and wash powder, Biotex. I find it almost too good to be true. I've just finished my first packet, and I washed all my baby's woolens with it, and they really do stay white. And what is more, they keep their shape so well, too. Once again, thanks for a wonderful product. I'm just hoping you won't wait too long before putting a large economy-size packet on the market. Well, thank you, Mrs. Head of Parkmore, and Mrs. Longman, for your endorsements. I, too, can endorse Biotex by making certain claims to you, ladies, the most important of which is that with Biotex, the stubbornest, the very stubbornest stains just vanish merely by soaking.
No, we certainly have nothing to gain. If I allowed it and let some young idiot lose his senses, what would be my position? But, of course, your being a journalist somehow, that alters the case.
Well, I suppose you mean that journalists have no senses to lose.
No. But one imagines them to be sensible, responsible people. Besides, here we have something to gain. Publicity and advertisement.
Exactly. And there I thought we might come to terms.
Oh, I know what's coming. You want to be paid twice, do you? It used to be said years ago that Madame Tussauds would give a man £100 for sleeping alone in the Chamber of Horrors. And I hope you don't think we've made any such offer. Now, what's your paper?
Well, I'm freelancing at the moment, working on space for 2 or 3 papers. But, I don't think I'll have any trouble in getting this story published. Do you? Morning Echo would use it like a shot. A night with Mariner's murderers. No live paper could turn it down.
How do you propose to treat it?
Well, I'll make it gruesome, of course, but with just a saving touch of humour.
I see. All right, Mr. Hewson. Get your story published in the Echo, And there'll be a £5 note waiting for you here when you care to come and call for it. I'd like to be sure about you, though. And I'd like you to be sure about yourself.
Huh?
I must confess that I wouldn't spend a night in Murderer's Den. I've seen those figures dressed and undressed. I know all about their process of manufacture. I can walk about in company downstairs as if I were walking among so many skittles. But I'd hate to sleep alone down there amongst them.
Why?
I don't know. There isn't any reason. I mean, I don't believe in ghosts. Even if I did, I'd expect them to haunt the scenes of their crimes or the place where their bodies were laid, not a cellar which just happens to contain their waxwork effigies. It's just that I couldn't sit alone among them all night. They seem to stare so. Well, after all, they do represent the lowest and most appalling forms of humanity. Now, I wouldn't admit this publicly, of course, but the people who come to see our murderers aren't generally charged with the highest motives themselves. No, the whole atmosphere of the place is unpleasant, and if you're susceptible to atmosphere, I warn you, you're in for a very uncomfortable night.
Well, sir, I'm imaginative, I think. I am probably susceptible to atmosphere, as you put it. But it's a good idea, and I have a wife and family to support. Been a bit unlucky lately in the job stakes, you know. And, well, we're living on my savings, which aren't great. But after all, they are only waxworks, aren't they?
You're not superstitious?
No, I don't think so.
But you've just said that you have an imagination. As a journalist, you'd need a reasonably strong one, after all.
The editors I've worked for have often complained I haven't any.
All right. I think the last of the people have gone. Now, wait a minute. I'll give orders that the figures happen to be draped. I'll let the night people know you're going to be there, too. One condition, I'm afraid, I must impose on you. I must ask you not to smoke. We had a fire scare down in the Murderer's Den this evening. I don't know who gave the alarm, but whoever it was a false one. Fortunately, there weren't very many people down there at the time, or there might have been a panic. All right. A night with Mariner's murderers you want. A night with Mariner's murderers you shall have.
In the passage at the bottom of the stairs were a few preliminary horrors. A rack taken from a medieval castle, relics of the Inquisition, branding irons, thumbscrews. Beyond was the passage into the murderer's den. The Waxworks. Thurtell, the murderer of Weir, stood as if frozen in his diabolical act. Within 5 yards of him sat Mrs. Thompson. There was Lefroy, who killed for gain so that he might ape the gentleman, and Charles Peace, sneering across a gangway at Norman Thorne. Brown and Kennedy, the two most recent additions, stood between Mrs. Dyer and Patrick Mahon.
Oh, no. That's Crichton. I expect you recognize him. Insignificant little beast. Looks as if he couldn't tread on a worm. Oh, there's Armstrong. Looks like a decent, harmless country gentleman, doesn't he? And, of course, who's this? Oh, yes, I was coming to him. He's our star turn. He's the only one of the bunch who hasn't been hanged.
The figure Hewson had indicated was that of a small, slight man, not more than 5 feet in height. It wore little waxed moustaches, large spectacles, and a caped coat. There was something so exaggeratedly French in his appearance that it reminded Hewson of a stage caricature.
Who is he?
That is Dr. Burdick.
Oh. Well, don't think I've... well, somehow the name's familiar, but I forget.
Well, you'd remember better if you were a Frenchman. For some long while, that man was the terror of Paris. He carried on his work of healing by day and of throat cutting by night, when the fit was on him. He killed for the sheer devilish pleasure it gave him to kill, and always the same way, with a razor. After his last crime, he left a clue behind him which set the police on his track. Now, one clue led to another, and before long they knew they were on the track of the Parisian equivalent of Jack the Ripper. They had enough evidence to send him to the madhouse or the guillotine on a dozen capital charges.
And they caught him then?
No. Our friend was too clever for them. Oh. Even then, when he realized the net was closing, he just vanished. disappeared off the face of the earth. Ever since the police of every civilized country have been searching for him.
Oh, where can you possibly gone to? I mean, with such a hunt on for him.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Did himself in, obvious. But in such a way that prevented his body coming to light. Now, one or two crimes of a smaller, though similar nature have taken place since he disappeared, but he's believed to be dead. The experts think the crimes, in a sense, are, the actions of imitators.
Look at his eyes.
Yes, that little figure's a masterpiece. You find the eyes bite into you, don't you?
Sort of, yes.
Well, that's excellent realism, then.
What do you mean?
Mesmerism.
Pardon?
Burdett practiced mesmerism. He was supposed to mesmerize his victims before dispatching them.
Oh.
Indeed, had he not done so, it's difficult to believe how so small a man could have done his ghastly work.
He's very small, isn't he? Doesn't look very strong or anything.
Well, there were never any signs of a struggle. There's an armchair here for you, Mr. Houston. It's the best we can do for you, I'm afraid. I hope you'll be able to get some sleep. Mr. Houston. Mr. Houston.
I
thought... Yeah?
Well, I thought, just then, I thought I saw, the doctor, Burdett, silly, but, I thought I saw him move.
Keep your home sweet with country-fresh atmosphere in every room. Keep Airwick handy. Airwick is the air freshener that actually knocks odors right out of the air. It doesn't just mask them with heavy scent. Airwick is the modern air freshener, in economical bottle or a smart aerosol. Get Airwick. It makes breathing a little nicer.
Soak, soak, that's all you have to do. Soak, soak, just for an hour or two you'll find things look as good as new when you use the Biotex.
With amazing new Biotex, the stubbornest stains will vanish. Yes, vanish clean away. Just by soaking your laundry overnight in cold water, or for an hour or two in warm water, or by pre-washing it quickly in your washing machine. Get amazing new Biotex today.
Where's the imagination? Silly, but... I could have sworn... Just for a second.
You'll have more than one optical illusion before the night's out, I'm afraid. But you won't be locked in. You can come upstairs when you've had enough of it. There are watchmen on the premises, so you'll find company. But don't be alarmed if you hear them moving about. I'm sorry I can't give you any more light, but all the lights are on. For obvious reasons, we keep the place as gloomy as possible.
Yes.
And now I think you'd better return with me to the office for a tot of whiskey before your night's vigil,
Yes, well, for a start, I don't think we'll ever have my armchair facing friend Burdett. Yeah, I think I like him a lot less than the others.
The dim, unwavering light fell on the rows of figures, which were so uncannily like human beings that the stillness and the silence seemed unnatural, ghastly even. Hewson missed the sound of breathing, the rustling of clothes, the 101 minute noises one hears when even the deepest silence has fallen upon a crowd. The air was as stagnant as water at the bottom of a standing pool. Not a breath in the chamber to stir a curtain or rustle a hanging drapery or start a shadow.
Must be like this at the bottom of the sea. Have to work that into the story somehow. Like the bottom of the sea. Sinister lot, I must say. Even Armstrong doesn't look quite such a harmless country gentleman now. Still, they're only waxworks.
All would be well, thought Hewson. Yet somehow, what prevented him most of all from feeling absolutely comfortable was the knowledge that Dr. Burdett was directly behind him. He knew, in fact, that the little Frenchman's waxen stare was directed at the back of his neck. He itched with a desire to turn round.
Come on. My nerves have started already. If I turn and look at that dressed-up dummy, it'll be an admission of funk.
It's because you're afraid that you won't turn and look at him.
Rubbish. I'm not afraid at all.
Yes, you are.
Rot. Complete and utter rot. Afraid? A lot of waxworks.
Not of a lot of waxworks. Just one. Dr. Burdett.
French fool. Not so healthy now, is he? Ha!
Look at his eyes.
Don't want to see his eyes.
All the same, he had to eventually have a quick look round at Dr. Burdett.
Only a waxwork like the rest of them. They're all only waxworks.
All the same, he took another quick look behind him. Now, it did not worry Hewson too much, because it was, after all, only his imagination, but there seemed to be a subtle change in the grouping of the figures around Dr. Burdett. Or was it Dr. Burdett himself?
Huh.
Looking to the front of him, he looked at Crippen. Again, he had the slight feeling that something, somewhere, was a bit different. Crippen seemed, for instance, to have turned 1 degree to the left.
Must have moved my chair a bit. Not Crippen. It was me who moved.
And just then, the waxwork of grey moved a hand. At least Hewson thought the hand moved. Just for his own peace of mind, Raymond Hewson gave the waxen figure a little poke. Wax. No more, no less. Lifeless, lifelike. Wax.
They tell me, the editors, I've no imagination. Better make some notes. Yeah. Deathly silence. Yeah. Unearthly stillness of the figures.
But then he turned suddenly and looked over his right shoulder. He had neither seen nor heard a movement, but it was as if some sixth sense had made him aware of one. He looked straight into the vapid countenance of Lefroy, which smiled vacantly back as if to say,
"It wasn't I."
Of course it wasn't you. Wasn't any of you.
And then he looked back, and Crippen seemed to have shifted his position slightly.
Can't trust that little beggar. Can't trust any of them. Once you take your eyes off them, they move. Not good enough, this isn't. I reckon I'm going. Not going to spend enough with a lot of waxworks who move when you aren't looking at them. No, Hewson, please. Can't move. What are you thinking of?
He encountered the mild, baleful stare of Burdett.
Almost got you that time, Crippen. All the rest of you, too. If I do see one of you move, I'll smash you to pieces. Smash you! Experienced enough already to write my story. 10 stories for that matter. Yeah. Morning Echo. Wouldn't know how long I'd stayed if I cleared out now. As long as the story's good. Yes. That watchman up there. He'd pull my leg all right. And perhaps the manager wouldn't give me the $5 too. Found out all right how long I was here from the watchman.
Rose will laugh about this, I tell her. You asleep, Rose girl, or awake thinking of me? Can't have Rose laughing at me. Kids will pull my leg too. Yeah. Nothing worse than having someone's breathing. Someone was breathing. Well, it wasn't me. They knew I was listening then. And then they stopped. Yeah, yes, they did. This is too much. Bad enough when they move, when I'm not looking. But I'm not having the beggars breathing, too. No, this won't do. I am Raymond Hewson, unsuccessful journalist, but a living and breathing man. And these figures grouped around me are only dummies. Dummies! Yeah. What does it matter if they're lifelike? Wax and sawdust for the entertainment of morbid sightseers and orange-sucking tourists. Ha!
Then the gaze of Dr. Burdett urged, challenged, and finally compelled him to turn.
Huh?
Hewson stared into those dreadful, hypnotic eyes. His own eyes were dilated, and his mouth, at first set into a grin of terror, lifted at the corners into a snarl.
You moved, Blasted. Yes, you did. I saw you. I saw you.
What do you mean?
Dr. Baudet's movements were quite leisurely. He stepped off his pedestal with the mincing movements of a lady alighting from a bus.
I need hardly tell you that not until I overheard the conversation between yourself and the worthy manager of this establishment did I suspect that I should have the pleasure of a companion here for the night. You cannot move or speak without my bidding, but you can hear perfectly well. Something tells me that you are, shall I say, nervous? My dear, have no illusions. I am not one of these contemptible little effigies suddenly come to life. I am Dr. Burdett himself. Pardon me, but, Steve, let me explain. Circumstances with which I need not fatigue you have made it desirable that I should live in England. I was close to the building this evening when I saw a policeman regarding me, thought too curiously. I guessed that he intended to follow me and perhaps ask embarrassing questions, so I mingled with the crowd and came in here. Inspiration showed me a certain means of escape. I raised a cry of fire, and when all the fools had rushed to the stairs, I stripped my effigy of the caped coat, which you may all be wearing, donned it, hid my effigy behind the platform at the back there, and took its place on the pedestal. I own I have spent a most fatiguing evening. The world is divided into collectors and non-collectors. The collectors collect anything according to their own individual tastes. I collect throats.
And the doctor regarded Hewson's throat with interest mingled with disfavor.
My activities of late have been curtailed. I am glad, though, of the pleasant opportunity of gratifying my somewhat unusual whim. I should never have selected you from choice, of course. No, I like men with thick necks. Thick red necks. This is a little French razor. The blade, you will observe, is very narrow. It does not cut very deep, but deep enough. In just one little moment, you shall see for yourself. I shall ask you the little civil question of all polite barbers. Does the razor suit you, sir? You will have the goodness to raise your chin a little. Thank you. And
a little more, just a little more. Ah, thank you. Merci, monsieur. Ah, merci. Merci. Over one end of the chamber was a thick skylight of frosted glass, which, by day, let in a few sickly and filtered rays from the floor above. After sunrise, these began to mingle with the subdued light from the electric bulbs, and this mingled illumination added a certain ghastliness to a scene which needed no additional touch of horror. The waxwork figures stood apathetically in their places, waiting to be admired by the crowds who would presently wander fearfully among them. In their midst, in the center gangway, Hewson sat still, leaning far back in his armchair. His chin was up-tilted, as if he were expecting to receive attention from a barber, and although there was not a scratch upon his throat, nor indeed anywhere upon his whole body, he was cold and quite dead. His previous employers were wrong in having him credited with no imagination. Dr. Baudet, on his pedestal, watched the dead man unemotionally. He did not move, nor was he capable of motion. But then, after all, he was only a waxwork.
That's the horror for this week. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more from Beyond Midnight at relicradio.com alongside past episodes of the horror, thousands of other old-time radio shows, our Shoutcast stream, and everything else Relic Radio. If you'd like to help support it, visit donate.relicradio.com or click on one of the links on the website. Your support has brought 15 years of Relic Radio to you. I thank you for that. Thank you for joining me this week. Be back next Saturday with another episode of the horror.
Strange Tales.
RelicRadio.com presents tales of the strange and bizarre, the weird and the wicked. Stories not necessarily of the supernatural, but of the unnatural. Join us now for Strange Tales, featuring radio drama at its most mysterious and unusual. This is Strange Tales. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me this Sunday. We're going to hear this week from Inner Sanctum, a series that debuted over the Blue Network in January of 1941, aired until October of 1952, produced over 500 episodes. Our story today is Wish to Kill. This one originally aired November 14th, 1949.
Good evening, friends. This is your host to welcome you through the creaking door into the inner sanctum. Come in, come in. I just came in from a bang-up fashion show. Styles guaranteed to kill you. See them and you'll never forget them. You'll talk about them day and night, man. Oh, they're wonderful. For instance, one bold fellow wore his head at a slant. Another parked his face on the piano before modeling. Said his face always stole the show. A third wild man, displaying the newest in zombie zoot suits, got into his trousers by pulling him over his head. Poor chap strangled to death. But nobody minded. No, they couldn't if they wanted to. In order to mind, you've got to have one.
Tonight's Inner Sanctum mystery, Wish to Kill, was written by John Robert and stars Carl Swenson, the role of John, with Miss Leslie Woods as Celeste.
Okay. Get your forks ready. Your pitchforks, that is. Have you ever wished for someone's death? Lacking the nerve to kill, you wished it with every ounce of you. And dreamed it, too. A dream such as this. John Kellam's dream.
She sleeps. With a yellow pallor in her cheeks. Yellow greed on her face. Within reach of my hand. I get up and stand over her. Celeste. The person I hate. I touch her. To waken her. I want her to wake up. To feel her. To witness her own death. Celeste. Wake up, Celeste.
John? John?
You look at me as if I'm a stranger.
Well, your face, it's... John, what are you up to?
This.
A knife.
To cut the knot that binds.
John, you're insane.
Cut it, John. But it was just a coward's improbable dream, the tortured wish of a helpless man. The wish for her death floods my mind. I wish it with every ounce of me. I can think of nothing else. Nothing else. We motored to the country, and the hum of the car is a single word throbbing in my brain. Murder, 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 murder.
John, I had a dream last night. Frightening dream. Woke me up. After that, I couldn't sleep all night.
What was your dream about?
Well, someone was hovering over me. I was about to die at the point of a knife.
Who was hovering over you?
I don't know. I tried to identify him, but his features were blurred and kind of unclear, and Now, who would want to murder me? Could someone wish my death?
You could.
I could want my own death?
Yes.
Well, now you're either teasing or you're being absurd.
Neither.
But why should I want my own death?
Self-dislike. Your own rottenness sickens you. Your own crimes shock and appall you.
My own rottenness? And crimes? What crimes?
Your crime against me. I'm a middle-aged man and you're young. Marriage was to be an equal partnership into which you brought youth and beauty and I wisdom and money. That was our understanding. But you cheated me. You brought nothing to me. You made a joke of my wisdom. You want only my money. The wish to kill was pushing me relentlessly now. Pushing me.
Just where are we driving, John? Do you know that we lost the highway at least 3 miles back?
The throb in my brain was a fever. Murder, 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 murder. My hand found a car tool. It was there conveniently behind me as if I'd planned it to be there like that.
Why are we stopping?
To settle something forever. Now get out.
A tire wrench. Oh, John, you wouldn't dare.
Get out.
But...
Walk into the pine grove in front of me. It's useless to run or scream. There's no place to run to and nobody to hear you scream. I didn't choose this spot accidentally.
Obviously not. And I didn't just come along with you idly either, John.
You didn't just come along.
Well, look. See for yourself.
Your arm.
And I'm an expert shot.
Out my hand!
You're not hurt. I shot at your tire wrench just to disarm you. You're not much of a killer this time either, are you, John?
This time?
That dream that awakened me last night. I woke up to find a knife on the bed covering. A knife, John. As if a killer had lost his nerve at the last moment.
You're going to expose me?
And how I am. The minute we get back to town, I'm going to tell the world that you're criminally insane. And I will see to it that you're put where you belong. In an asylum.
I sprung my own trap. And then suddenly it happened. My wish that she die then, right before me, produced its agent. A man appeared. An armed bandit came out of the pine grove. As if I had willed him.
John!
Okay, lady, get those rocks off your fingers and climb out of that fur coat. You, mister, pass me your wallet.
He hadn't seen Celeste's gun, hidden in the folds of her coat as she removed it slowly. Not expecting it, the robber hadn't seen it. I watched Celeste, tense, gathering courage.
My coat? Here.
Why, you...
Oh, John!
Celeste! Her shot had gone wild, but not the bandit. Celeste was on the ground, a shadowed figure, still as death, in the first gloom of twilight.
That crazy dame pulling a gun on me like that?
Was she so quiet, so dead?
Yeah, bullseye for me. Now pull those rings off her fingers and give them to me. Come on, don't stand around staring at me.
I wished you. And you came, agent to my wish. I murdered Celeste. Through you.
Okay, so you wished. Now grab a hold and help me dump our victim.
We carried her into the pine grove. The bandit led the way. Surely, as if following a prearranged blueprint in his mind. And we stopped at a pond. We almost walked into it when he ordered a halt.
Far enough. We'll give your missus a whole lily pond all to herself.
We held her so solemnly for an instant. And in that instant, I could feel the world tremble under my feet.
Okay. Heave.
Celeste!
You're divorced now, mister. Like the lady enough to remarry her?
Huh? I don't understand.
You better like her enough to, seeing that you're about to join up with her for good.
You're going to murder me?
Just shut you up.
No, I won't ever betray you. I swear I never will. I wanted her dead.
And I want you dead.
In the gloom, I couldn't see the gun leveled at me, but I could feel it like a live thing throbbing against me. Again, I could feel the world tremble under my feet like a rumbling earthquake erupting and hurling me through space. I ran.
Run and you'll make dying a lot tougher for yourself.
Two shots had misfired in the gloom. I was untouched, whirling into deeper space. I outran a third. The knife is my shield, my armor against death. I lay face downward in the pine bed while time stopped, listening to the bandit firing random shots into the woods as he slowly gave up the pursuit. Soon, for a long time, there were no sounds, no rustling in the thickets, no shots. My mind was an adding machine, totaling the column of numbers. 5 bullets. And the one that had killed Celeste, 6. He fired 6 bullets. And now there were no more. I'd won. I'd saved my life. I'd won! But then, when the darkness emptied silently into the ghostly gray of dawn, I saw her, Celeste, specter of death in a wet dress that dripped like great beads of tears falling. She was standing over me. Celeste.
You're safe, John. He's gone away. You don't have to hide anymore. We can go home now.
We? You say we?
We can go home now.
No. No, not together. Never together anymore.
Come, John.
Never together. Never anymore.
Come, John. Come home, John.
Alone. I'll go alone. You're dead. You're at the bottom of the pond. Dead. You hear that?
I left the pine woods and went home alone. The imagination plays tricks. Celeste was dead forever in a watery grave, but the imagination plays tricks. Entering my house in the white glare of a new day, there were sounds in the living room, familiar morning sounds. Radio music from Celeste's favorite station, the station she tuned in while she had her breakfast. I'd been gone all night. Who had tuned in that program? And then another thing. Swimming in my vision, catching at my throat. A coat flung carelessly over a chair. Celeste's coat. The mink she'd worn to her murder. And then in the kitchen, one more thing. A coffee pot on a lighted stove, hissing. The doorbell. The back door to the yard. Mrs. Oglesby. An old lady with no life of her own, only everybody else's. Our neighbor next door.
Good morning, Mr. Kellum.
Mrs. Oglesby?
Come to give back the sugar I borrowed this morning. And thank Mrs. Kellum for me.
Yes, The sugar you borrowed this morning?
Well, that's what I said.
Borrowed from whom?
Miss Kellum, of course. Now, ain't that a peculiar question?
You're certain you borrowed it this morning?
I am. Are you trying to mix me up now?
You're an elderly woman. You do nothing but stare out of windows and live other people's lives. You have no life, no sense of time. Today could be yesterday, and yesterday could be last week or last month. Now get out of here with your old wives' tale.
Well, I never...
She scurried off. And then, staring after her into the yard, something suddenly held me. A clothesline of wash. And there in the center of the line, limp and dripping great beads of tears, as I'd seen it standing over me in the pine woods, was the dress, red silk with gold brocade, the same dress Celeste had been murdered in, and her body cast into the lily pond. I went back to the scene of murder. At the scene, there was a sign that I hadn't noticed yesterday. A large construction sign fringing the neck of the pine grove, a sign that read Harristown, now building, the Seymour Harris Construction Company. There was a fleet of trucks and cranes and men, and scores of men. An iron bulldozer shearing through the pine trees, leveling them. And I called to a man holding an engineer's construction plan. You, over there, engineer.
Yeah?
What's going on?
Read the sign.
Yeah, I know. But those bulldozers, you intend leveling the whole pine grove?
Yeah, we do. Goes back less than a quarter mile. Just a day or so's work for those bulldozers.
It's a funny, out-of-the-way place for a housing development.
Well, land's cheaper, for one thing.
Well, it's spotted with stagnant pools, mosquito-infested.
Spotted? You don't know the pine grove, mister. There's just one pond, shallow lily pond in there. We'll get that drained and leveled off with fill in a jiffy. Hey, you sound like you hate to see those pine woods go. What, are you sentimental about them or something?
Yes, I'm sentimental. Drained in a jiffy. Machines were going to dry up the lily pond and expose a corpse. At nightfall, when the bulldozers sat quietly like great iron ghosts and the men were gone, I stole into the pine grove to grapple for Celeste. Shallow, the engineer had said. Well, it was. The reeking pond left its filmy waist just below my shoulder. I covered the bottom inch for inch, and then over again, waiting for the numbing moment of horror when death and my bare feet would touch. Inch for inch, slowly, lengthwise, and across Hour on hour. The numbing moment of horror never came. My feet didn't touch death. Celeste wasn't there. Celeste wasn't underfoot. But standing over me on the bank with the moon lighting one half of her face. Spectre of death in a wet dress that clung tightly. The dress, red silk and gold brocade. The dress that hung limply from the yard clothesline.
You don't need to look anymore, John.
Are you dead, Celeste?
You don't need to look anymore. We can go home now.
Celeste, please, while I have a shred of sanity.
We can go home now.
Are you dead? Are you dead?
Come, John. We can go home now. Come,
Celeste! Celeste! I went home. Alone. Midnight. The lights are on brilliantly. I'd left the house in darkness and music. Radio music. The radio tuned into Celeste's favorite evening station. And other things, old familiar things, nightly routines, my slippers and robe and pipe waiting, and a table of snacks, cheeses, crackers, red wine set before the fireplace. Our nightly ritual, a midnight snack with a fire going. With the fire going? Fire wasn't going. Fire couldn't. The fireplace was bricked up, newly bricked with fresh cement. Fresh cement still moist to the touch.
Cement's still soft, huh?
You.
The killer himself. I looked up who you were. In your wallet, Mr. Kellum.
The fireplace.
Out of commission from now on. Unless you want to answer to a murder charge, partner. You willed me, remember? You murdered your missus through me.
Well, then Celeste is?
Behind those bricks.
What? How?
I got a look at that construction sign last night and went back for the body. You were a day late catching on to the danger we were in when they got around to draining off that lily pond.
Not we.
We. Your missus is behind those bricks, so you'll always remember it's we down the line.
You murdered Celeste. I wanted her dead, but you murdered her. I have nothing to fear from the police.
Haven't you now? How do you think I happened to be up there at the Pine Grove at the right time?
What? How you happened? Should I know?
I'll remind you. You hired me to waylay you and your missus. The come-on was all the jewelry she was going to wear, plus $1,000 I was going to find in your wallet. You don't remember?
No. No, I don't remember.
Tell that to the police.
But Celeste isn't dead.
Now, where'd you get that brainstorm?
I saw her in the Pine Grove. Twice she spoke to me.
You're crazy in the head.
She's been here in this house preparing breakfast, setting out my slippers, robe, this table of snacks.
I did all that, Kellum. I was having fun with you. Softening you up in the head so you'd go to the bank for me regularly and often.
You did all that?
That's right.
No. Celeste lives. I hired you, yes, that much I believe, but you told Celeste. You joined with her. You joined her scheme to drive me insane, to steal my money.
That's a nice idea. Too bad the lady is dead.
No, she lives. You shot at her, but she didn't die. You missed deliberately. We dropped her in a shallow pond less than 5 feet deep that you could get up and steal out of in the darkness.
You're as balmy as a bedbug. But we're going to do business. Cash on the line from now on.
I had but one course now. One course only. I could have no safety, no life ever. Sooner or later, he'd kill me. Police department.
Kellum, you listening to me?
What, Sergeant?
You were smart about one thing.
Smarter? About what?
Hurry up there, man. You're not pulling down the Chinese wall. It's only a fireplace. About that hood and your wife working together. You hired the gunman, all right. And then he made a quiet deal with your wife. But, there's always a but.
But what?
Your wife got scared of her own scheme. With the gunman dominating the picture, it was getting out of control. Mrs. Kellum suddenly wanted to get out from under.
Huh? Well, how can you know that she wanted to get out?
I do know. You see, I was on my way here anyhow, just when you telephoned headquarters. You don't get it, huh?
No.
Your wife phoned in a complaint. She was on the phone with me personally not an hour ago. You tried to murder her, she swore, twice.
Then Celeste is alive?
That's no surprise to you. From what you told me, she's practically been keeping house for you, same as always. Sure, she's alive. Okay there, fellas.
Okay, Sergeant, we got it open.
Come on. Come take a look at nothing.
At nothing, Sergeant? Celeste.
Hey, what are you trying to... Well, knock me down. She is in there. A woman that phoned me only an hour ago was sealed up in a fireplace all that time.
Bricked up in the fireplace. You know, that's really doing your all to keep the home fires burning. Celeste was simply crazy about housekeeping. Imagine getting up out of your grave to wash dishes. Let's sum up the domestic life of the Kellums in a limerick, shall we? There once was a cook named Celeste, whose cuisine met every test. She could toss up a dish that was simply delish. But hubby's goose was the dish she cooked best. Good night. Pleasant dreams.
Sanctum was heard in the United States over CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System, and has been rebroadcast for servicemen and women overseas. This is the United States Armed Forces Radio Service, the voice of information and education.
That's our strange tale for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find more from Inner Sanctum at relicradio.com. Alongside this podcast, all the others, and thousands of other old-time radio episodes, all available for free to listen to thanks to your support. If you'd like to help out, visit donate.relicradio.com or click on one of the links on the website. Your support makes it all happen. Thank you, as always, to those who have helped out. Thank you, as always, for joining me today. Be back next Sunday with another episode of Relic Radio's Strange Tales.